This TFMR podcast is brought to you by your friends at JM Bullion. Visit jmbullion.com for all your gold and silver bullion needs. Welcome back to your TF Metals Report podcast highlights for the week of October the 9th through the 13th of 2023. A very volatile week with much emphasis placed on geopolitical concerns, but then also, though, the monetary policy impact of the geopolitical concerns. On Monday, that was already being felt with a big day up in gold and a decent day in silver, too, as Fed rate hike expectations eased on the uncertainty in the Middle East and what the economic impact might be globally because of that. Now, I was traveling on Monday, the 9th, so there was not a podcast that day, but on Tuesday, the 10th, we picked it right up, and one of the charts we looked at was COMEX silver. Even though gold continued higher on Tuesday, silver did not and was trading sideways at the $22 level, which for about the past decade has been a very important level, either as support or resistance. Well, on Tuesday the 10th, it was acting as resistance, and which way it goes from there will be important and significant. So that was just one of the charts we discussed on Tuesday the 10th. Okay, next, here's that intraday chart of the December contract, okay? Banging around doing nothing, finding support below 21 last week at this time. Okay, remember all that support we talked about, 2085, 2090, soaring after the BLSBS, gapping higher Sunday evening at 6 o'clock Eastern. And now look at prices exactly where it was then. There have been excursions above 22, and all of them have been repelled back down and below. Notice how neatly those three highs connect. That's rather remarkable. And there's a little bit of a pennant forming here, so we'll watch. Be very curious to see what happens with this, how it's going to resolve, if 22 is going to be held as a hard cap. A lot of this will be due, see what happens with dollar index and rate hike expectations tomorrow. Wednesday, the 11th, brought even more bad headlines geopolitically. Also brought the producer price index in the U.S., but yet gold and silver extended their rallies, both of them up that day. So it's time to check the daily charts. So here is our discussion from that day, looking at the daily chart of the front month December gold and the front month December silver. So then finally to gold and silver. Again, if the dollar does break down through 105.5 and was to 104.5 and all this dovishness, safe haven bid, rate hike expectations, everything else. How far could we go? Well, that trend line, you got faked out of this baby a couple weeks ago when we got above it and then fell back. That trend line and the 50-day moving average are kind of falling in unison here. For today, they're up around 1925. Later this week, early next, you're going to be closer to 1920. That would be your target. It's only $30 from here. So that seems to be a pretty reasonable and very important resistance level that we need to break. And you can see it in silver too. Rallying today. Next key level is get above this 2250, and then it can make a run at its own 50-day moving average. Now that's not quite as important as you can see as the trend line. Oh yeah, we fiddled around with it in late September and again back on Friday, or I guess, but 2 weeks ago on Friday. But that would be I think at this point, your next targets, provided we hold above 22, and we've already come up, $1.50, another $1.50 from here up to this 23, 29. That makes sense. Somewhere north of 23 would be your next target. And if you can reclaim the 50-day, okay? Notice when we reclaimed the 50-day in July, we went and put point number 2 and 3 on this line. Fell below the 50-day in August, reclaimed the 50-day in late August, and put the next couple of points on the trend line. So if we can reclaim the 50-day, you could logically assume that the next target is the trend line, okay? But we can't go to the trend line until we get above the 50-day, and if we get above the 50-day, we need at least $1. So we'll watch it very closely, and having the dollar break down below 105.50 would be the first move toward making that happen, so keep an eye on it. On Thursday, after rallying through the day on physical buying in Asia and in Europe and London, the COMEX opened, the latest CPI report came out, and gold drifted back down, reversed almost a full 1% from its highs just below 1900. That meant it was a really good time to remind everyone at TF Metals Report that though we were having a good week, we still had yet to accomplish anything from a technical standpoint. The chart was still down, the trend was still down, the prices were still making a series of lower lows and lower highs. That's a definition of a downtrend. Now that can change, and as we move later in the week and in the next week, perhaps it will change. But Thursday the 12th seemed like a good time to remind everybody that nothing had changed yet. Here's part of what we discussed that day. Again, gold still trending lower. Nothing has changed. I'm telling you this all week. This interest rate hike expectation stuff had moved in our direction, but this is clearly still a downtrend of lower highs, lower lows, below the trend line, below the 50-day. You could make a case that these are lows, this down here between 1830 and 1840, that's as low as it's going to go. But you can't make a case, you can't for sure say it's not going to come down here and try to double bottom or even make one of those, remember, positively divergent lows where it goes even lower, like to 1820. But the RSI doesn't go lower than it did at the previous low. That's a positively divergent low, usually a good sign, good marker of a bottom. So again, we could go straight up here. Could have been a V bottom, rally through 1920, 40, all this geopolitical stuff, change of everything. Fed has to change course, in 3 weeks, all that stuff. But for now, you can't make any statements like that. And on Friday, October the 13th, COMEX gold blasted higher by nearly $60 or more than 3%. Much of this due to geopolitical risk as the war in the Middle East looks to extend over the weekend, could be pretty ugly, and Lord knows how things will look by Monday. That uncertainty driving a safe haven bid and short squeeze in COMEX gold. We'll see what happens from here. Now, the chart looks somewhat similar to what it did back on Wednesday, the 20th of September, when price broke out above the trend line, broke out above the 50-day moving average right before the most recent FOMC meeting, and down it went the next day. So let's not get carried away yet on the breakout. We'll see what happens Monday. We will pray for peace over the weekend and then deal with the gold price from there. But as we wrap up things here on Friday the 13th, gold had the best day it's had in months, silver too, and it sets us up for a very interesting week next. So please stop by TF Metals Report. Great time to join the site. It's only 50 cents per day to be a part of the community and stay on top of all news, geopolitical, economic, national, international, you name it. If you're going to follow gold, you got to follow everything, and that's what we do at TF Metals Report. Check us out, tfmetalsreport.com. Have a great weekend, but please pray for peace, everyone. Thank you.